Imagine this for a second. We live in a hyper-connected world, right? Your smartphone literally tracks every single step you take. Yet somehow, a massive modern Boeing 777 carrying 239 people just ceases to exist. There was no distress call, no wreckage, just gone. It completely defies everything we think we know about modern technology.
Welcome to this explainer, where we are peeling back the layers of the absolute most baffling aviation mystery of our time, Flight MH370. We're going to look at exactly how a perfectly routine flight turned into a seemingly impossible vanishing act.
To really wrap our heads around how bizarre this is, we have to start with just how normal it was. It's March 8, 2014, just past midnight. A Malaysia Airlines Boeing 777, which, by the way, is one of the safest, most reliable aircraft ever built, takes off from Kuala Lumpur heading to Beijing. The skies are clear, zero mechanical issues, and at 1:19 a.m., the first officer makes a totally routine final sign-off to Malaysian Air Traffic Control. Malaysian 370, all right, good night.
But what happens next is where this turns into an absolute nightmare. Let's break down the exact timeline here. At 1:07 a.m., the plane's automated system sends its routine data. Completely normal. At 1:19 a.m., we get that final calm voice contact. Then, literally just 2 minutes later, at 1:21 a.m., the plane's transponder, that's the device broadcasting its location to civilian radar, suddenly goes totally dark. And shortly after that, military primary radar catches something terrifying. The plane violently deviates from its route to Beijing, pulling a sharp, deliberate turn right back across the Malaysian peninsula.
Now here is the ultimate wait what moment. The plane's transponder and its data link system stopped working at almost the exact same time. Mechanically speaking, for two completely independent systems to randomly fail simultaneously is extraordinarily unlikely. I mean, astronomically low odds. To investigators, this incredibly precise sequence points to one really chilling conclusion. Someone intentionally shut them down. And here's the massive twist that set the whole investigation back immensely. Because civilian radar lost the plane over the South China Sea, this huge international search fleet spent over a week scouring those relatively shallow waters. Guys, they were looking in the completely wrong ocean. They had absolutely no idea the plane had become a silent ghost flight, retracing its steps across Malaysia and heading far, far away from its actual intended path. So you might be wondering, how did we finally figure out where it actually went? Well, enter the accidental detectives. Even though the main communication systems were disabled, a satellite communications unit on the plane was still running in the background. Once an hour, it sent out an automatic electronic handshake to an Inmarsat satellite in orbit. It's kind of like your cell phone silently seeking a tower in the dark. It doesn't send GPS coordinates, it basically just says, "Hey, I'm still here." To figure this out, engineers used a concept called burst frequency offset. Think of how a police siren changes pitch as it speeds past you on the street. That's the Doppler effect. By measuring microscopic frequency shifts in these super faint satellite pings, engineers achieved the impossible. They essentially used high school physics to prove the plane was actually moving straight south. And this brings us to a timeline that is just, well, chilling to think about. The final partial satellite ping was recorded at 8:19 a.m. That means MH370 flew completely undetected in total radio silence for approximately 7 hours after it disappeared from civilian radar. An entire workday. It just flew and flew until its fuel tanks finally ran dry.
So that brings us to part 1, Into the Dark Abyss, the search scale.
This new satellite data shifted the narrative to a pretty horrifying reality. The plane hadn't gone down in a shallow sea. It ended up in the southern Indian Ocean, which is arguably the most hostile, remote body of water on Earth. Searchers were suddenly up against a staggering 120,000 square kilometers of uncharted ocean floor. To put that in perspective, it took an international coalition 3 grueling years just to map this zone. And they weren't just looking at a nice, flat, sandy bottom. We are talking about crushing depths of 3 to 5 kilometers below the surface. This is a terrifyingly vast landscape. Deep canyons, abyssal plains, ancient volcanic trenches covered in thick sediment. Trying to distinguish scattered aircraft debris from natural jagged rock formations in pitch blackness at that depth, it's literally like trying to find a needle in a continent-sized haystack.
Which brings us to part 2, the locked room, suspects and theories.
This all forces us to ask the central, haunting question. Who was actually at the controls?
The flight deck basically became the ultimate locked-room mystery. Experts tested every single theory. A catastrophic structural failure? Highly unlikely, since it flew smoothly for 7 hours. A hijacking? Well, no group ever claimed responsibility. As investigators systematically and neutrally closed the door on all these innocent explanations, the chilling consensus leaned toward a deliberate diversion from inside the cockpit itself.
And this highlights a deeply tragic irony. Following the events of September 11th, the aviation industry mandated heavily reinforced, completely impenetrable cockpit doors to protect the flight crew from outside hijackers. But in the case of MH370, that very safety measure may have actually sealed the plane's doom, preventing anyone in the cabin from intervening in whatever was happening at the controls. Without the black boxes, the exact truth remains locked away.
Moving right into Part 3, the washed-up truth, Reunion Island.
For over a year, there was absolutely zero physical proof the plane even existed anymore. Until 16 months later, on July 29, 2015, a local worker cleaning a remote beach on Reunion Island stumbled upon a 2-meter piece of metal completely encrusted with barnacles. It was a Boeing 770 flaperon. Serial numbers definitively matched it to MH370. This heartbreakingly closed the door on any alternative survival theories. Today, the official search has largely been suspended, but get this, the science hasn't stopped. Independent researchers are now looking at some seriously cutting-edge theories to find the plane, including something called WSPR radio waves. Think of WSPR as an invisible global web of electronic tripwires. When a massive metal object like a 777 flies through them, it actually disturbs the signal. By analyzing historical radio logs from that exact night, researchers believe they might be able to pinpoint a brand new search area slightly north of where we originally looked.
While the plane itself remains missing, its legacy has permanently altered how you and I fly today. Because of MH370, planes over oceans are now mandated to broadcast their positions at least every 15 minutes, and airlines are moving toward continuous data streaming, so we literally never lose a plane in the dark again. It also triggered a massive global overhaul of pilot mental health protocols and flight deck security.
The legacy is profound, for sure, but the wound is still wide open. For the families of those 239 people, this mystery isn't just an interesting story, it's a daily, lived absence. Somewhere out there, in waters so deep and dark that light has never even touched it, lies the definitive evidence of what happened that night. And it leaves us with one final, provocative question. With underwater drone technology advancing every single year, is it only a matter of time until the next deep-sea explorer finally solves the greatest aviation mystery in human history?